So we are back here to our application, and we've done the basic things. We've seen how we can get this up and running, and we've connected to an endpoint and gotten a value back from the endpoint. And let's inspect the program.cs file again and have a look at it. We can close this down or minimize this. At the moment, is it necessary? It's not. Let's stop our application, and we notice that we have map get business map. So you see, we can, how many times, if I have 10 endpoints to map, I must come here and list in 10 endpoints. If I have 1 million endpoints to map, I must come here and list the 1 million endpoints. That is actually not ideal. So let's do a little bit of programming and get this wrapped out properly. So you understand what endpoint is, how we use Swagger to develop a very beautiful endpoint for our TCS accounting application. So now we would get in there and build for the rest of the services and have a full-fledged RESTful service for TCS accounting. So to do that, let's get this out, and here let's be coding now. We will come back here and so we have, this is the domain, sorry. We have this endpoint service, and that works very okay at the moment. I think so. If there's anything else, you can go ahead and we can learn how to make this better. Alright, so this is good at the moment, and what we can do now is we can come up with a dependency injection. I don't need this place. We can come up, and I think we've used everything. This will save to me as a template for the rest of my processing, and I would like to refactor some aspect of my application as well. So let's come in here. I think we're good, and let's build a dependency service. So inside here we have endpoint services, and that still is somehow for me. So let's, under configuration, I'll come here and not configurations per se. Let me use the word, let me add a file to this application that we will define every endpoint inside. So I'll come here and add, here I will add a class. I'll add a class here, and I'll call the name of the class endpoint configurations. Let me put it here, configurations. Yeah, let's put it here, endpoint configurations. Endpoint configurations. Like that, and that is good. And this class will be a static class as usual. A static class, and here I would have public static void Here I would say use business endpoints, like that. And since this is going to be hooked into the application fabric, I would like this to, it should be on the iApplication builder, and that is what we'll use, and we'll pass in application builder. And that is what we're going to use. And now the application builder already has knowledge that we have some form of endpoints that we can use. So I will come in here. I'll come inside my program and copy these endpoints out, and come into my endpoints configuration and put them here. And here I'll change this, I'll add this to be here, 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 here. And my application builder should be able to wrap out those resources for me. and I can click S. You would say not this application builder, and I'm sorry, this should be endpoint builder. That is what it should be, because this is routed to endpoint itself, so these options will not be there. So here I would change this to endpoint builder. endpoint route builder, and this should be route builder, and we can rename this to route builder. Alright, so let's change this. Let's change this properties to route builder. And we can have map get business, and all this information are inside here. We can have access to this, and that is fair and good enough for us. And this is now good for us. So for us to actually use this endpoint in our application, we can come to the program.cs file and say app.use business endpoint, use business endpoint, and that is all we need to do to have access to that service. We can put a cursor here and use business endpoints in that configuration service, and that is all we need, and every other thing is available. So we still keep a very lean program.cs file, entry point file. All right, and that will make all that available for us. So let's go ahead and check that that is working properly. So checking that works properly, we can come back to our application and have a look. Alright, so this works properly. And by the way, we did not specify this information well, so let's go and put the summary for the rest of the details. And that is good enough for us. Let's come back here. So we have our business endpoint service. This should be provide a list. Provide a list of businesses. That should be it. And there should be some summary of that business information, and we should add this metadata information to the rest of the properties. And this actually map default business, so this can be default business information. So basically that is what I'll just use that. And we can go ahead and copy this part of the details and put in the rest of the processes like this, and this will be simple, and this will be create business information. Something of that sort. So we need to remove this because that is, and we have update business information and delete business information. All right, so we are good to go. So our endpoint service is good. So let's go ahead and do this for business account classification, accounting period, and the rest of the context services that application provides. So let's close everything here and come back to just let the program sales file close all tabs, post this, let only this file remain, and let's come back here and do some work here. So first and foremost, I'm going to do a bit swap, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, and just change this to, as usual, this is going to be a business account classification endpoint, business account classification endpoint, like that, classification endpoint service. and that is the name. So wherever we have business here, I'm going to change it to not business, is going to be business account classification. And as usual, that should change that in the current document. Oh, sorry, I missed that. That should be copy, Control C, Control V, and where you have this information, yes, like that, go ahead and change it to what is necessary. So for instance, let's do this for businesses. Let me do for businesses first, and let me change that for businesses to this. All right, that is correct. Then for business, I will change it to business like this. Okay, so that is, there's a problem. The naming conventions are clashing. I'm in the wrong file. I'm doing this for the business endpoint service. So this should actually change to, let's rename this to this for the minute, and let's rename this to business account classification account classification endpoint service, like that, and let this be actually the business endpoint service. Business endpoint service. And most times you can actually, alright, most times you may use a different naming convention like request handlers. For this point, I'm just going with the business, the endpoint convention, naming convention, and I'm good with that. So here we are going to get a business account classification service, which is in here, and that is going to get business account classifications. Does that actually exist? This is going to be, gosh, there's a problem. I did a double naming convention here, and that is going to cause a problem. So I'm going to get this here, that is 2, Control F, and return it for 1. All right, so do that for the current document. Business account classification and business account classification. Replace all. It's not, so let's forget about it. So I'm gonna change this to this, and this should be this, and this should be this. All right, so now we are good to go with those changes. Let's check if there's an error. Obviously there will be an error because like businesses here is not businesses, is business account classifications. So this list is actually business account classifications, and there is nothing like default business account classifications. So this would sacrifice, we have typically 5 methods or 5 methods, yes, request methods for our application, and most times it may span more because of the individual context requirements. So that is not going to be, so this is going to be a list of business account classifications. So we're going to get that there, and here is not business information. This is, that's everywhere we have business information. We should actually change that to business account classification. So here should be business account classification. All right, so that is what we need here. Okay, that is better. To update business account classification, make it put request to the specified endpoint. All right, and here we do not have a default, so we can get that out. And we are good to go. So we have this beautiful dot. And there's no error, and the code is neat. So we have the business account classification endpoint actually ready. The next thing we will need to do is we can copy this line of code for business account classification. Again, after saving it, we can do Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V at this point, and make sure we are in this copy, and rename this to accounting period endpoint service. So here will be accounting period endpoint service, and that is good for me. All right, so here we'll change the business account classifications as usual to accounting period, and that is all we need to do, and everything here will change to accounting period. All right, and there is a catch. I just missed something very vital. So here we'll change this business account business like this. We need to make some changes to lowercase, and C here is actually just accounting period like that. All right, so we need to change that to lowercase as well. So we can do that, and that will change all the references to lowercase. Classifications, business account classifications, just changes to accounting periods. And there's something I just noticed, that this endpoint, the naming was wrong. So here is going to be accounting period like that, and here we're going to specify that this is accounting period ID, accounting period like this, and this is going to be this and this. All right, and that is the proper thing we're doing now, and we are good to go. Something seems very same. Why doesn't it get accounting period the same thing like accounting period by ID? Because those are just different requests. So we can actually wrap that into the same request like get accounting period, and that is basically the same thing like delete and everything, because it's the same signature. So but just that the operations are different on the objects, and we can actually do that in here. So whatever we've done here for accounting period, we can go ahead and replace that and replace that for business account classification. But before we do that, let's make sure we have the appropriate logic for account period injected into our endpoint configurations, and I think we are good to go. If there's anything, we can come back and resolve it, and we have that wrapped out. And the next thing I would like us to do is, let's come back here because we missed something here. So this is actually business account classifications. So Ctrl+C, this is actually business account classifications, and here we can put all the small letters and copy it again, and put it in here and put it in here. And that is what we need to do, and that is good. And here we need to create business account classification. That is good. And here we can just call, since this is the same thing, we can so get business account classification, and that resolves the same thing. That is just the same thing, just like we did for the account period. We can do the same thing for business account classification. So this is actually the same request, just that they are actually get. So this is get business account classification, just like that they're actually different method types but the same endpoint name. And we can, as a matter of fact, we do not actually need this two endpoints because we can actually use this one, but for just understanding sake, I'll leave it. And we have that for business account classification done, and we have for accounting period services done. So let's go ahead and implement for account. So we come to rename this to account. Let's do that for account and see what the value for account will actually is. So let's do that for account and see what it is. So for account, we will put we'll just change this to account endpoint service and put the name like that. Let the name be like that, and we open the file account endpoint service and change this accounting period. If I were you, I would just do Control F, the thing period, and just change this to nothing, because actually that is the meaning. And that we have account endpoint service. And another thing is I have this period inside lowercase somewhere like that. Sorry, this is a so the ing like that, and I'll change them to nothing. And I have basically what I want. And I can come to accounting periods and just change this to accounts as usual, and so some form of spacing between accounting period and account still exists. So we can do that, and that is basically what we want, and we are good to go. So here we can just add the account data object as usual, and we have a full-fledged application we can use, but we'll come back to take the account services to add, because we have so many services, so many endpoints, much more endpoints than this for the account, and we can configure this. Is good to go for the account. So the next one we are going to do for is journal. So I'll just copy the account now and change it to journal. That is better for me. Get accounts, and that is good for me. So here I'm going to copy this and put it back in here and rename this to journal. So we'll change this to journal, and we have journal service and account service, and we have journal service. So we open the journal service and change the name from here to journal. So we have journal, and that should fly. And everywhere we have accounts in lower case, we can change them to journal. And there's a problem. I always knew that this will cause a problem between account and journal. So let's make this only on the selected points in the code, because not every point should be the same. So on selection, because if not, we will have this one here changed as well. So change on selection, and that is what we want, and that is good enough for us. And we can come in here and add our journal service in here, and I think that is all good for the journal. Alright, so we have journal configured as well, and we can come in. We'll come back here and do some refactoring. The next thing we will do is add configurations for our endpoint, all the endpoints we have. So we already have map business, so what we will do is a simple copy and paste. So I come here, copy and paste. So I'll have map business endpoint. Let's do it for here. I would put, just select this, come to, let's make it for, no, let's just do it for 1 and remove. We missed something. So we actually miss a particular one that does for business, just one business, and that is and get business endpoint. It's actually there, and we can have this to be business. And we can come here and change this to, it's not necessary. Let's put a cursor here. We can actually pick the points we want because it's the same thing. And here is account classification. And that is the ideal thing we want. So here we can change the map business accounts classifications. Did we miss something? So we have this map business account classifications, and why is it not showing up here? Let's go in. I think there is a little issue. We can business account classification endpoint service. We can resolve, and let's check map business account classifications. There is a double naming convention that I didn't take care of, and that should resolve that at that point. That should resolve it there, and we are good to go. So we can combine to our endpoint configurations, and we have them properly aligned. So we can come here and do for much more. So the next one will be accounting period, as we all know. And we can come here and simple thing, just put the cursor, not here, sorry. And change the names to business account classification to accounting period. Accounting period. And that is what we need to do here. And here we need to add reference to get accounting period. Get accounting periods. Why are you not showing? Let's check the accounting period endpoint service. There is a problem, and this was wrong. This will be wrong for all the files. Map accounting period, and this is actually accounting period service. That should be made available there. Let's go back to accounting period service again and check. Did we spell it? No. Well, let me check something. Thought map accounting period. Map get. Alright, I see the problem. It's a small thing. I didn't spell this properly. It's single C instead of double C. So the same thing will happen for copy the accounting period and put them here. And we will do the same thing we did by removing the period under ing and make it accounts. And that is good. And we'll do the same thing for the accounts by changing it to journals. So here we would have the same thing, and we'll change this to journals. And we can come back to our application itself, the journal endpoint service, and remove these two journals. That is better. And this is get journals. Okay, we would resolve that soon. And endpoint, we can come to endpoint configurations, map accounts, and let's come to account endpoint service and remove these classifications and make it accounts. All right, so that is good for us. We are good to go in that case. And let's come to our journal endpoint service because there's something interesting. So there's actually no way we can get all the journals. And here we need to get journals not just by ID, but by an accounting period. So we can have to specify accounting period for the journal. Accounting period ID for the journal. And that is what we need. And here we need to have a way of getting the journal from the route. So we just need to copy this is wrong. This is not the business ID we should use. So let's do a bit of refactoring here. So from that we should hit this endpoint, and here should be journal ID, accounting period, ID, and that is the same thing that we should get in here. So we should pass that to accounting period ID. And this is a typical case. So this is not supposed to be journal, this is supposed to be business. I bet I have no business. Oh, I have so many of them. So come here and change business to journal, like that. And the whole point will change to journal, and that will be proper. So this is actually business data object, but this is supposed to be a journal data object. And that is what we should expect and get. So I think that is good, and we're good here. And let's come back in here and go on to something else. So journal is good this time. Let's get to our accounting service. Journal looks good. Let's come to accounting service and check. And believe me, this is going to still be here. So come here and change to account. That should be the proper URL name, and that is better. In here we need to specify that this is getting logic from account, and this is what we want. We can go ahead and go through this line of code to make sure that it's okay, it looks okay. So let's come to accounting period and do the same thing, because I'm very sure that this is going to repeat through all the files. So this is accounting period ID. So this is accounting period ID. And did we change that in here? We did. Alright, so that is better. So this is accounting period, not ID, accounting period, like that. And that should change that everywhere. By the way, we need to remove this and put in the appropriate one, which is accounting period service, because that change hits every point on this file. So we can come here. This looks good. Let's go to account, business account classification, and here we will have the same challenge. This is not business ID. This is business account classification ID. The business is going to be business account classification, and that is the proper thing, business account classification. Right, and we can rename. No, that is not proper. Control Z. We have to reverse that because we have so many business names in here in this file, and that will ruin a whole lot of things. So let's just make sure that it's business ID that we're referring to, and make sure we are only changing business ID to business account classification ID, and that is better. I think we should have that in all the places. That looks good enough for me. And business as usual, journal as usual, and we have everything good. So let's go ahead and run our application. But before we do that, we have endpoints configurations here. So this is map accounts. Why is it not showing again? So let's come to account, map accounts. Is there any issue? Map accounts, I missed something. So let's come to endpoint configurations. Look good. All right, so we can have one point where we call all the services together. So we can have one particular point where we just use application endpoints, and we are all good to go. So for instance, we can come in here and actually do this, copy this and put it in here like this, and say use application endpoint, use TCS accounting service endpoints, like that. And here we just need to call route builder dot use business endpoints, and that is what we need to do. Route builder dot use business account classification endpoint. Route builder dot use journal endpoint. That is basically what we need to do. Dot use account endpoint. Dot use accounting period endpoint. And that is all. And all we need to do is come to our program.cs file and have a very clean implementation of it, which is use TCS accounting service endpoint. And all our routes are there, and we can go on and run them and have a look at them in the browser. So we have a small error, and we can go ahead and check that out. That is a compilation error. Mobile Get Business does what? I'm trying to figure out that this doesn't return this. And what happens? Sorry, let's build this and see. Build solution. Probably missing something. Zero failure. Let's see what actually happened. Let's run this again. Let me see what happened. Business ID is not a route parameter. Why? Thank you. Alright, I've corrected that, and that is a runtime error. And let's do that again. That's sorry, a pre-runtime error, not runtime error. That is accounting period account period ID. That is not account period ID. That is accounting period ID. I just wish that. It's accounting period for all of them, and I did a mistake. So this is accounts period. Control F is accounting period ID. Accounting period ID. Okay, so that is the proper thing. And let's save this. Let me see if there's another one. Alright, so all our endpoints are running successfully, so we should have them listed on the screen. So we can see them listed on the screen here, and we have our account, we have accounting period endpoint, we have a business endpoint, we have a business classification endpoint. With a journal endpoint that users of TCS accounting can go ahead and query. So I will encourage you to do this, build this up. It will give you so much experience on how to build. So this is a full REST endpoint that you can get information out. So for instance, if we want to check out all the accounts in the system, we can stand here and try out, and we can get this out. And that will give us all the accounts in the system. And you see, we have all these accounts in our system. And this is the beautiful thing about Swagger and OpenAPI specification. Alright, so this is good. This is the first visual product of what we were trying to build, and I believe you've enjoyed this. All right, so we can go ahead and check out the accounting periods as well. So we can try this out, execute, and you can see we have the accounting periods in our system. And we can go out and check whatever business account classifications that we have. We can go ahead and try them out. And we have this business accounts classification. All right. And we can go ahead and check out, do we have journals inside? But we do not have an accounting period. So let's go to get an accounting period, and we go check the journals in that particular accounting period. So I think we have one for this. Let's copy this accounting period and come to journal here and try this out if there's anything, and paste and execute. All right, so we have this transaction for this accounting period, and that looks very, very nice. And all right, so you can actually see, you can download this into just a particular location in your system. So I would say code with thumbs in. That looks clean. Let's save that in there, and we see we have a full-fledged JSON document that we can have a look at using Visual Studio Code. And that seems very good. So every user of application is going to be consuming this endpoint that we actually have built, and let's refactor this in our next video. This is good enough. All right.